Welcome to my top 10 movies of the year. These are movies that are personal to me that I think, while I'm sure I could argue some objective value to the overall cinema mainstream landscape, you have to remember that these are just my personal favorite movies of the year. Now, let's be clear. I do think this is going to be my most controversial top 10 movie list yet. And it's over a decade in the making of these videos. I think this is the one that's going to have the hottest opinions, that it's going to hemorrhage a lot of followers, I'm sure. So let's just get this out of the way. I didn't see Wicked Part 1. Wicked is one of my favorite musicals of all time. I think it's objectively one of the best musicals of all time. And I hate that they made it into a part 1. I think that's insane. It's a half-finished movie. I'm tired of calling it a movie. Like, it's not. Once part 2 comes out, then you can watch it together and say, oh, it's a 4.5-hour-long movie. And that's great. I will go see part 2 in theaters. I just out of principle will not see part 1. It's like, I'm so tired of us rewarding Hollywood for half-finished movies. I'm talking Across the Spider-Verse. Even though it's amazing, it still was unfinished, and that's not fair. And Moana 2, one of the most egregious examples yet, because that movie doesn't have, at least there's some emotional arc that finishes in Across the Spider-Verse. This one has nothing to finish. So I'm sorry. I didn't see Wicked. I know I'm going to love it. It will be here eventually, I'm sure. Maybe. I don't know. I mean, at least in a brand of musical movies, it definitely. Anyways, let's move past that. Number 10 is Deadpool and Wolverine. I don't need to say much about this movie. It made me laugh. I was surprised at the amount of cameos. I was surprised that I was actually surprised with several of those cameos and that the internet didn't spoil it for me. And yeah, so it's just hilarious. It's Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds going full-blown comic book, and it was perfect. And yeah, so there's that. It's very enjoyable time. Gotta make the list. It's record-breaking. It's great. Number 9, quickly back to the controversy. Here it is. Listen, I'm sorry. I thank you for following me for so long, but here we are. Joker 2. I absolutely love it. I mean, it's not a movie that I'm going to rewatch over and over again because it's too dark for that. And the middle there's some parts of the singing that annoy me, mostly just because of the story. And for the case of the story, Lady Gaga is being pulled back a little bit and for some of those songs. But in general, I liked Joker 1. They just said, forget Batman stuff. We're just going to really focus on this, timeline of the Joker, and we're going to make it a musical set like in the 50s, which is like crooner style, and I love it. I love that so much. And then they're like, oh, by the way, let's just do an animated recap, a 2D animated recap, like Warner Brothers Looney Tunes style at the beginning of the movie. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, that is like, this movie could not be made more. I am the one person in the Venn diagram of all of the things that make up this movie. And so, yeah, I'm sorry. It's who I am. I cannot deny who I am. And so I'm sorry that everyone hates this movie. I'm sorry that the Batman lovers feel even more betrayed. But if you really think about it, the first movie really wasn't about Batman stuff either. So maybe think about it a little bit. And then, yeah, I'm sorry for all the people who love those kind of musicals but don't like this subject matter. So let's just move past this. I've said enough. It was great. Number 8 is That Christmas. I don't remember the last time a Christmas movie was in my top 10. It's great. It's called That Christmas. It's by Richard Curtis, who he made 3 children's books, and then he turned it into a screenplay, gave it off to an animator to jump into the director's chair, and they did a wonderful job. It's a Brian Cox movie, voice acting, that was actually good this month, as opposed to War of the Rohirrim. It's like 2 animated Brian Cox movies coming out in December of 2024. And so that's at least one of them was good. So Santa's not even actually a huge part of this movie. That's not really a spoiler. He's kind of just more of the narrator. He does take elements, but it's really about small town community for Christmas and it tells the joys and sorrow of Christmas, of that time of year. And I think it's very beautiful. And so I highly recommend this. It's a big, good, easy family watch for everyone. It's going to be in my annual rotation now. Number 7, we have Brothers. This is probably the quirkiest movie, I think, in my top 10 this year. It's a low budget independent movie. It's on Amazon Prime. It was directed by the guy who did Palm Springs, and Palm Springs, if you'll remember, was my number 1 movie of 2020. It's on Hulu still. It stars Andy Samberg and Kristen Milioti, sorry. So he went and made another movie and got an even crazier stacked cast. We've got Peter Dinklage, Josh Brolin, Brendan Fraser, Marissa Tomei, and Glenn Close. I mean, oh my goodness. Like, it is quite the cast. This movie has that same energy. It's just a little bit grimier. It's about a dysfunctional family who are a family of thieves. It's kind of backwoods, Logan Lucky style. It was hysterical. Number 6, we've got Nosferatu.
Nosferatu!
Yeah, so this is a romantic gothic horror movie. The performances are outstanding. This movie is not for the faint of heart. It's right towards the middle of my list. I don't think this movie is going to be for everybody. But yes, it's very dark. It's just this Robert Edgar's most accessible film. So far, he's made a lot of films that really most mainstream audiences wouldn't like, and I know a lot of mainstream audiences are not liking this because I heard the chatter in the lobby after the movie. But I think the performances by Aaron Taylor Johnson, Nicholas Hoult, Lily Depp, Willem Dafoe specifically was hysterical, and then of course Bill Skarsgård just completely disappears in the role. And so all those performances are crazy. So it's worth it just to see just that level of acting. And the direction was so good and the cinematography was amazing. So we've got Monkey Man, of course, Dev Patel, directorial debut. I mean, just punch after punch after punch. I mean, you can feel the sweat and elbow grease of this movie. And it's a work of art. It's a high octane adventure with a lot of little socio-political messaging in it, and I think it's well worth your time if you're in for a good revenge movie that has just a little bit more character to it. And so yeah, that's my number 5. Number 4, we've got Alien Romulus. It's probably the same level for me as Rogue One is to Star Wars. I don't think it's as good as Rogue One by comparison to the Star Wars stuff. I don't think Alien Romulus is my favorite of the Alien franchises, but it's certainly an outlier in the midst of a slew of mediocre sequels from Alien 1 and Alien 2. And so what I love most about this movie is how new the cast is. There's no A-listers in there. It's really just a bunch of kids. It's like Goonies in space, and the aliens are still good. There's lots of fun surprises. Inside Out 2. Yeah, I mean, listen, I have anxiety. I got lots of friends in my life who deal with a lot of anxiety. If you're not dealing with anxiety, congratulations. You are an alien. This movie was great, even though it lacked Bill Hader and Mindy Kaling. I think the people that they got to do it did a great job. I wish Pixar would pay people the money that they deserve to continue making sequels. So hopefully that won't happen again, but it probably will, because money is money and CEOs are CEOs. But I really think the animation was great. I do think not having Michael Giacchino was kind of the score suffered, but overall, I think this movie is important to just the culture at large, and I think everyone should see it and give it a chance. Dune Part 2. Listen. I know I said the words Part 2, but is it really a Part 2? Listen, there's things that happen. I like this movie more than I like Dune Part 1 because I actually care about the characters, and so that alone makes it a little... I don't know. Listen. Just... I know I said I didn't like Wicked Part 1 because it's a Part 1, and I know the same thing with Moana 2, and here I am with Dune Part 2. But I'm hoping my followers will kind of understand... Like, I think my audience will understand the difference that I'm trying to make in this because it's a epic saga spanning dozens of characters and all sorts of stuff. I don't know. I think there's just a gravitas with the Dune franchise that it merits being a trilogy. So anyways, that's why it's here. But yes, I love the characters more. I didn't really care about the characters in Dune Part 1, but this movie made the characters... I felt it here. And then obviously all the stuff is just cool. It's epic. It's sci-fi. It's fantasy. I love it. It's just so gargantuan. And if you're still seeing it on streaming and not in theaters, what is wrong with you? Watch Dune Messiah, which is Part 3, in the conclusion. Watch that in theaters, okay? Good night. If you like these movies and are not watching it in theaters, come on. Just pay the money and go see it in theaters. Number 1. Here it is. I mean, have you guessed it already? It's The Wild Robot. Yes, of course. I mentioned in the other movie. It's just, this is the gold star of this is what cinema is. This is what movies are meant to be. It's got something for everybody. It's beautifully animated. It's unique. It's not just it's a style all of its own. It's not fully replicating one of the more current styles or an older style. I feel like it's very new, right? Kind of in the middle of both. And the performances are great. Pedro Pascal, I didn't even know Mark Hamill was in this movie until I saw his name in the credits, because he just disappears. And I mean, the cast is stacked if you look at it, and there's just so many good people in it. And the story is great. It's original, I think, but it's extremely relatable. It's a story that it's obviously a very parent-driven story. It's a story of parents and their kids, but for those who are not parents or not in that stage of life. I mean, you can either see it from the reverse angle between you and your parents, or there's also, in addition to that, there's just a huge community, like, who are my people? Like, that kind of story. And I think with both of those stories being very forward in this, I think everyone can relate to it. I would like to invite a guest on to the PhilmReels YouTube. My daughter, who I saw The Wild Robot with, I would love to give her a moment to tell you any brief thoughts that she has about the movie, because that was one of the very special things that happened this year for me, was that I started taking her to the movie theaters, and she saw Inside Out 2, she saw the Garfield movie, she saw Wild Robot, Moana 2, a lot of good animated fun times at the theaters this year. Okay. Hello.
Hello.
So, do you remember when we saw the Robot movie? Yeah? Can you tell me what you liked about that?
I loved it.
Yeah, you loved it?
I loved the robot.
You loved the robot? Did they do funny things? Yeah? What else did you like? Were there animals in that movie? It's been a while since we watched that movie, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Was there a bear?
Yes.
And little geese?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And a fox?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Did the movie kind of scare you a little bit? Yeah. But was it okay? Yeah. Do you have anything you want to say about the movie?
I loved it.
Okay. Great. Okay, well, thanks for coming on my YouTube channel.
Thank
Say bye,
you.
people.
Bye, people.
Say Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.